The day Barcelona will finally compete for the big trophies again is the day that the club realizes Marc-Andre ter Stegen is not Barcelona level. I need Lamine to threaten to leave this season unless we eliminate ter Stegen, and I'm not just talking about his contract. The fact that Messi never hated Higuain but hated ter Stegen should have given us a clue. Marc-Andre ter Stegen has been the #1 for FC Barcelona for years, but now is looked at as one of the biggest problems to this side's failure. So how did this come about? Why do people feel this way, and what does this mean for FC Barcelona going forward? Because the truth is, ter Stegen has never been a perfect shot stopper. Over the past few years, we've seen two distinct types of goalkeepers develop. One who is incredibly talented at keeping the ball out of the net, like Gianluigi Donnarumma, who had the best shot save percentage of any goalkeeper last season at over 84%. The other is a keeper who is adept at distribution and usually sweeping or coming out of the box to defend and clean up for their team, like Vicario at Spurs. Now, sometimes you find guys that are great at all of this, like Neuer or Alisson, but Marc-Andre ter Stegen is very much so like the latter group. The ones that are good with their feet and probably less adept at saving the ball from going in the net. Back when he was at Borussia Mönchengladbach, when he helped save them from relegation in 2011 and brought them to 4th the following season, he was a very solid keeper even then at like 18, 19 years old, saving around 80% of the chances he faced and covering his team well. Then, because of all his success, he moved to Barcelona to work under Luis Enrique and share minutes with Claudio Bravo, where he would play primarily in cup competitions and won a treble with the team that season. That year, his save percentage was good, but on the higher end of average, around 74%. But on top of that, he was good with his feet while doing it, allowing Piqué and Mascherano to do their thing confidently with ter Stegen behind them on the ball. That group in front of ter Stegen was a much more settled defense than we see today, and that I'll talk on a little bit later, but that allowed ter Stegen to get comfortable relatively quickly without having to struggle with, not knowing who was going to play in front of him and how they were going to do. And then going through the years, ter Stegen was for all intents and purposes good. He made some saves, some really good saves, and was also decent with the ball at his feet pretty consistently. Now, he's never been a great sweeper coming out of his box to help defend with the team like Neuer has been. However, he's been good enough at getting the ball around with his feet and even picking out fullbacks at times. There were even headlines like this: hands of silver, feet of gold. Ter Stegen and Messi continue as FC Barcelona's joint saviors. Ter Stegen was good and decent for FC Barcelona through several years and was praised for it, rightfully so. However, one of the key reasons that I think all of these problems have come up today about him is because he never was able to claim that German #1 spot away from Manuel Neuer. At one point, ter Stegen was touted as the most talented German goalkeeper in the world and was expected to steal that job away from Neuer, but years later, he's seen a lot more of Neuer from the sidelines than even probably the most devoted fans have. And Barcelona is supposed to be one of the best teams in the world, whether they are or not at times in recent years. And that comes with an expectation that their best players, their most consistent players, are also going to star for their national team. And with ter Stegen not being that guy for Germany, I can see that creating more doubts or willingness to doubt ter Stegen's ability in fans. But that's only the tip of the iceberg with these issues here. And more importantly, I think it's all of the stuff about the drama in the dressing room between ter Stegen and some very notable players at Barcelona. Over the years, we've heard plenty of stories about hiccups in the dressing room between ter Stegen and a few other players, specifically Messi. And we even saw Piqué come out on a podcast after he retired and say that he didn't have confidence in ter Stegen at all after the loss to Liverpool in the Champions League, that he didn't work hard enough to help Messi keep his promise to culés to bring the Champions League trophy back, like apparently the rest of the dressing room had, or at least apparently Piqué had. Now, your thoughts on Piqué or his abilities at that point aside, the fact that so many reports are coming out that ter Stegen is an issue, or that there are issues with ter Stegen, and especially the other guy being Messi, I could see that also creating some animosity towards the guy that isn't necessarily sporting or about his ability on the pitch. Having an issue so public like that come out that you're not vibing well with the most important player on the team cannot be good for his public perception, and it definitely wasn't for Mats. And on top of all of that come the comparisons with Victor Valdez. That guy was the #1 for Barcelona through the period leading up to Claudio Bravo, through the club's most successful years in its long history, and so a lot of people say that Ter Stegen is nothing like that, or wishing for the old days back with Valdez. But honestly, from people that seem to have watched both keepers, it appears like on average, most of them believe that Mats is better. I didn't watch Victor Valdez, and I don't have the stats to back up my argument, but from what it seems like for people that have watched both of them, Mats is better because Victor Valdez was error-prone and inconsistent, and his peak was not as high as Ter Stegen's is or was. And honestly, we have to be rational with the time that Ter Stegen has spent at the club, because he has gone through some of the worst years in Barcelona history, and you cannot blame that all on Ter Stegen, especially when the lineup in front of him was never very solid. Older Piqué, Samuel Umtiti, and Clement Lenglet doing their best performance of a 12-year-old in front of Ter Stegen. The goals are going to go in the net, and it's probably going to make Mats look bad. Ter Stegen played pretty well for Barcelona in those early years when he was confident in those guys in front of him. But after that, you can't fault him for all of the failure of this side because of the inconsistency in front of him. Now, you can be upset at Barcelona for not pairing him up well with someone who's supposed to replace him, or forcing competition from the guy from the likes of Jordi Masip, or more recently Arnau Tenas, who just won a gold medal with Spain. But Ter Stegen has been a decent keeper as well, and the stats kind of back that up. If we look at this past season and see Ter Stegen compared to other keepers in teams that are supposed to play similar to him and that finished similarly in their league, well, he doesn't look that bad at all. The first category is trying to show, are they performing better or worse in making saves than we thought per 90 minutes, and Ter Stegen is fine. Not great, fine. Maybe you want more from your #1, and that's reasonable to ask for, but it's not terrible. Now we can look at his overall passing, and we see that he's at the top of all of these guys who are also supposed to be pretty good with his feet. Now, you could probably also argue that this just means Barcelona make a ton of short passes, but it's still a good representation that Ter Stegen is good at that because he's up at the top. Elite at that, you might say, but you can't say the same about the next category, crosses, stops. Ter Stegen is absolutely putrid at this, and this is a major issue that he should try to address in his game. But he does not command the box well at all, like Raya, Ederson, and Lunin seem to be much better at doing. Finally, if we look at his sweeper actions per 90, basically his defensive actions outside of the box, he is right at the bottom of the pack again, only barely ahead of Lunin. Now, we could go through other stats as well, but they all tell a similar story, that Ter Stegen is right in the mix with most other things, and he's decent overall at most things as a goalkeeper. And that is why Barcelona hasn't looked for a proper replacement. Ter Stegen is decent, and so it's hard for the club to justify assigning a large expenditure when they can't afford much, especially when that signing will almost certainly not sell any jerseys. That was one of my main arguments behind why the signing of Dani Olmo makes some sense. Sure, he's a signing that fills a position that we already have a plethora of other options for, like we could argue Ter Stegen at goalkeeper would be. However, Dani Olmo being an attacking talent, bringing some excitement even if it's just Dani Olmo, that'll sell some jerseys in a way a goalkeeper won't necessarily. But that doesn't mean Barcelona is completely guilt-free. As I've said, they should have brought other guys over the years to compete for that #1 spot against Ter Stegen to try and push his form to be better. But the fact is, he hasn't had a ton of real good competition at all. And we can especially be upset at them for last summer losing Arnau Tenas on a free. Now, I'm not saying Ter Stegen's a perfect player or even a fantastic goalkeeper, but he's no worse in my opinion than Ederson, and he just won a treble 2 years ago with Manchester City. So please, it's not Ter Stegen's fault. This team is so bad. These guys on Twitter don't know what they're talking about. They're just talking nonsense. Ter Stegen isn't great. He's not a perfect keeper. He makes a lot of mistakes and does a lot of things wrong, but so did Victor Valdez. So do a lot of goalkeepers. Now, I'm not going to fault you if you don't like Ter Stegen. You don't have to like him, and I'm not upset if you don't. It's always hard statistically even or objectively to like or dislike a goalkeeper. It's hard to tell sometimes. And you know, you can always ask for more from our players, but don't blame the entire thing on him. If Barcelona are bad this season, I don't think it's going to be Ter Stegen's fault that they are bad. Now, whatever, moving on from Ter Stegen, I'm going to be live for Barcelona's first match in La Liga this season, and I'm pretty excited about it on Tifo. I've talked a lot about it before, but it makes it a lot easier for me to stream, and I think the community is a lot better on there. It's a lot easier to just hang out and chill, and I can actually bring viewers up on the stream with me. Those of you who have been in it seem to love it, and I'm excited to start the new season on Tifo. So check it out, it's free, but I'm also going to talk a little bit more earnestly on my second channel about Ter Stegen, so you can go ahead and click here to talk more about Ter Stegen, leave more comments there, and just have a little bit more of a talk, a conversation about the whole thing. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.